I was just in Michigan. I was in school. I ended up leaving school because I ran out of money. And I was just working, and something was just burning inside me. I kept feeling like I wanted more, and I needed more, and I just wasn't gonna accept like just like a random job in a random town doing random things. I just knew that I wasn't gonna do that long term. And I just remember going out, like whenever I would go out and at night and people would ask me what I did. At that time, I was a receptionist, and it used to make me like cringe when I was just like, when I had nothing substantial to say, because I used to run in a circle where everybody was doing things. And I worked in a cool place. I did work at the University of Michigan, so it was cool. But I'm there with all these students, travel, because I worked in the travel abroad office. So I was like helping kids like go study in London and go study in Japan, and just so, being in that environment, seeing, kids just doing so much in the world, and then also running, my social circle were just movers and shakers in the Detroit like nightlife scene. And so, Detroit has a lot of progressive professional people there. And and so that's who I used to hang with. And I used to kind of pretend that my job was more important than it was. And so I got tired of that feeling. And so my girlfriend moved to New York. I got the idea. I'm like, I really should just pack up and move to New York City. How I got to New York and got the opportunity that made me leave when I did. I met this guy, I was dating this guy, and I told him that I had aspirations of moving to New York. He said, what do you want to do in New York? And I said, I don't know, but I want to work in the entertainment industry. And so it just so happened that he had an aunt who worked at a major label. And so he said, maybe you can intern with my aunt. And so I said, oh my gosh, okay. And so it just so happened to be that I was going to Miami with some girlfriends for Memorial Day weekend that year. And this is in May. This is how fast this happened. So yes, in May, I go to Miami for Memorial Day weekend, end of May. And the guy sent me to this party. It was a video shoot for Ja Rule and I think Ashanti or something. And he sent me to this party, and he said, find the guy who works for my aunt and talk to him about an internship at Def Jam. So at this party, I speak to him, and, he's barely paying me any attention. But I speak to him and I say, I know this person who knows this person, and they said to speak to you about an internship. So he's like, okay, fine. He's like, you can come in and intern. He's like, but we won't pay for you to get there. Like, you're on your own. You're not going to get paid as an intern. So you got to find your way to New York, and you have to figure out how to live because we don't pay our interns. So I was like, okay, fine. And so that all it took was for somebody to give me that opportunity. And I was like, out of here. So that was end of May. My decision was final at that point. I was in New York June 21st. So within 30 days, I had made up my mind and sold my things, bought a flight, and was out. So now fast forward, I'm in New York, and I start at my internship at this label. And it was so magical because this was at a time when, I don't know if whoever here is familiar with Def Jam Records, but this is at a time when like Jay-Z was putting out albums, DMX was putting out albums, Ludacris was putting out albums, Cisco from Drew Hill was putting out albums. This was when Ashanti put out her first album. I mean, this was like when music was like at its best. I mean, and Def Jam was like the biggest hip hop label of all, of all of them. That's the one, started by Russell Simmons, and that's where LL Cool J's first album was from, was Def Jam. So I was at like the place to be in New York City because I was already kind of like, I didn't consider myself still intern age. I was an adult. I was already in the workforce. I knew once I got to that internship that I could not mess around. I could not be there wasting time. I could not be there like being googly-eyed over celebrities. Like, I had to turn it into a real opportunity right away. And I knew, especially because I had moved to New York literally with $200. By that time, I'm like running out of money. I'm eating like water and like 99-cent burgers from Burger King, trying to stretch my my dollars. And so I knew that at a certain point, my little dollars were going to run out. I was going to have to pay rent the following month, and excuse me, I knew that I had to turn it into a job. So I, you know, back in the day, back in those days, intern culture was huge in the entertainment industry, where they would just anybody off the street, up, you're an intern. You know, there was no paperwork involved. There was no like structure or contracts or anything. It's just like you were just unpaid work, pretty much. And so there were so many of them in the building, just like running around. You know, everybody had my intern. And because the building was so saturated with just these random kids running around the building, I knew I had to stand out in order to get an opportunity, in order for me to get a job or it's turned into something real. Because again, you know, these people were like major record executives. They were not paying any attention to these like nameless, faceless kids running around. And so I just had a strategy. I'm like, I have to stand out. I have to work harder than all these people. I have to know more people in the building than all these people. And, you know, very early on, I just realized not only do I need to know these people, but they need to know my name. Every day I came in, that was just what I set out to do. I set out to just impress, to go above and beyond, and just to stand out. So I just made sure that every single thing I did was just top notch. Just the conversations I was having, the type of work I was doing. Another thing that really stood out to people was um, interns. Just they kind of came and went whenever. A lot of them strolled in kind of in the afternoon, you know, at whatever time they would like leave, you know, at 5 o'clock as soon as it got like hot out. Because mind you, at this point it's summertime. And I worked for someone who, you know, he was always the first one to come into the office every day before everybody. People got there like 9, 10 o'clock. He would get there at 8. And then people usually left in the evening, you know, at some point before 9 o'clock. But he would always stay until 12, 1 o'clock. And this is every single day. And mind you, I'm just moving to New York City, haven't really like, you know, fully like learned the city or hung out or whatever. And here I am like working literally like 8 in the morning to 1 at night. And I just did it because I knew it was going to pay off. And I knew that I just did not have time to waste. And I was in such an amazing place, like to be at the, you know, top hip hop label. There was no higher place to go. And so I just knew I wanted to be there. So I just worked hard. And I think the one thing that I did that I think changed the game for me was the press clippings. Press clippings are every day the publicity assistant goes and looks at all the newspapers. So all the dailies, we call them. So like the New York Times, the LA Times, the Daily News, whatever. And they would search through all the press clippings and pull out notable industry related content and highlight any news about our artists or our companies, and put them together in a big packet, photocopy them. I mean, it's a whole nightmare, but put them together in this big packet and would pass them around to all the executives in their offices every morning. And it was like known as like the worst job ever. People used to hate the idea of it. And I just was like, hold on, that's like the best job, because I knew that it would get me into everybody's offices if I, you know, every day. And I knew that if I were to get in everybody's office every day, that was an opportunity to chit chat, to, you know, say something smart, to offer to help in some kind of way. And I knew that it would accomplish my goal of people knowing who I was, apart from the other interns. So I happily did it every single day. And every single day, I would walk in all these top executives' offices. I mean, some of the people, you know, now are like, I mean, some of the biggest executives in the business, and who I still am on first name basis with just because of these press clippings. But yeah, I would go in their office every day and I would chit chat and I would small talk, and they got to know me just from that. And because of that, this one executive. She was DMX. She used to work with DMX and Foxy Brown and at the time. And she, because I used to be in her office all the time with those press clippings, one day she said to me, I have a job for you. She just said, I have a job for you and I want to see how well you do with it. So she gave me a list of things to do. And it was like a big long list of errands to run and just things that she needed to get off her, checklist. And so she sent me in a private chauffeured car around Manhattan to, it was like I was on a scavenger hunt trying to get all this stuff done. And I mean, she gave me like probably several thousands of dollars worth of diamond jewelry from DMX that I had to go get fixed at the jeweler. And so I'm like running around Manhattan with all this jewelry. I had to like go like, shopping for Foxy Brown. I mean, all these different things I had to do. So I did them and I made sure I did them like to perfection with no incident. And when I got back from all those errands and I reported back to her, she was just like, I'm really impressed. And I'm really impressed that you didn't make any mistakes. And she said, because of that, so it was almost like a test, I guess. She said, because of that, I want to refer you for an opportunity that's coming up. She said, the marketing manager for that department was going on maternity leave. And she said, we would rather not hire, someone on the outside. We would rather hire someone internally that we trust and we know is going to do a good job. And so she offered it to me. And now, mind you, at this point, I'm still an intern. There are several assistants that she could have given this opportunity to. There are people that have worked in that building longer. Because at this point, this is like maybe July. So I've got there in June. This is July. So like a month later, she's giving me this huge opportunity. And she's like, yeah, we'd like you to take on this position while this girl's gone. It'll be about 4 months. And so I'm like, holy moly. And mind you, I went from making $0, and I think it paid like $20 an hour at the time. And for me, I was like 21. I wasn't making any money. So going from $0 to $20 an hour, like my head exploded. I took that job and the same way, I treated it the same way, if not even like more serious than I did the internship, because I wanted that to turn into a long-term thing. And so this girl had an office. She would go to like the major executive meetings, like with the top executives. I don't know if you guys are familiar with like Leor Cohen and Kevin Liles and Julie Greenwald. They used to have this meeting every Wednesday called 911. And that was like an all hands on deck, all top executive meeting. And even though I was just intern like yesterday, I just started going to all these meetings because I'm like, well, she did. So I'm her while she's gone. I wasn't gonna act like, oh, the intern in the meantime. I stepped fully and totally into her role. And when they let me in her office, I took all her stuff down off of the wall. I decorated it with my own pictures. Like I just got totally into character because I wanted them and I needed them to see me in a certain way. And so, yeah, and that even caused like a little bit of a tension with other interns and assistants because I was even doing things that and assistants at that time at those kind of record labels were like major, they were important people. They weren't just like, errand boys. They usually, for the most part, they did all the work.
How'd that make you feel? Just deciding quietly that you're taking charge, you're taking this thing, this is all your plan and you're doing it and you're implementing it.
Because I used to get so much feedback, it felt damn good because again, people were very vocal about what they thought of me. And so although I had to balance, like I said, criticism from people who, felt like I was moving too fast or I was like, too big for my britches or whatever, a lot of assistants were upset because I kind of skipped over them even just as an intern. Um, but when I decided that I was going to carry myself like a marketing manager, it just I just didn't care what anybody thought. I knew it was my career that had to be in charge of, and it was my lane that I was creating for myself. And I just went with what I knew was going to get me where I wanted to go. It paid off so well because, again, I was seen by the executives, and that was not normal back then. Even assistants got lost in the sauce. Like a lot of executives back in the day didn't really know a certain assistant's name or didn't care. But because I stepped totally and fully into her role and into character and was going to these executive meetings, and I was like sharing ideas and just speaking up in meetings and raising my hand and not kind of sitting on the sideline. Like they're true, it's very true what they say. You have to carry yourself how you want people to treat you. And if you carry yourself very junior, if you're carrying yourself very, timid and, waiting for permission all the time, and, whatever, that's just how people will treat you. But if you come in with a commanding presence and a presence, like I know what I'm doing and, you know, um, I have something, significant to contribute. Like that's how people will treat you. And all these things for me, I mean, at this point, literally I'm 21. They were just instinctual. They were just instinctive because I don't know where I was getting in this from, but I was just moving very intentionally and strategically with everything I did. Well, there's two things that I did that I think really changed the game for me. There was one big party that was happening. Um, Russell Simmons and Rick Rubin, and Rick Rubin is the one who started. Rick Rubin and Russell Simmons started Def Jam. Rick Rubin is an old white guy who looks like Santa Claus with like hair down the hair, but super cool hip hop head, totally unsuspecting if you saw him. But he was coming back, and he hadn't been back around for years, and he was coming back doing a big party. And so it was like this big star-studded party. I mean, all the A-list celebrities you could think of were there, and LL Cool J, and Chris Rock, and all the big time people. And there was this rule that no assistants could go. And everybody kind of that whole day was wondering, like, is Nicole gonna step out there and really go as if she's really, and I'm like, what? Like, listen, I'm the marketing manager. Like, I am not an intern anymore. I just I was like, whatever. And so I think when I went to that party, that's when it shifted. Like people just got in line with what was in my head and and just treated me like, again, like I was, the important person that I wanted them to make me, I wanted them to see me as. Another thing that happened was the time when the company we had just signed Nickelback, and I forget whatever their first hit was. It drives me crazy that I forget because This Is How You Remind Me. And so they were performing at the Highline Ballroom in Manhattan, and that was another event that was like only executives are going, and there's no tickets for assistants or whatever. And again, I just didn't listen to that. And and I went. And by this point, because I had been going in meetings, and the executive meetings or whatever. So now at this point, the top three executives know my name. So that's Julie Greenwald, Leor Cohen, and Kevin Liles. And they all knew me on a first name basis, and which was the ultimate goal. And so I get to this concert, and we are in this skybox, and somehow I just again, there were like other tickets for company people, but I was like, I'm going to the skybox. And so I go into this skybox, and I walk in and I scan the room, And there's all the top executives in there. And not only the top executives, but like the artist managers. So there's like Nickelback's management, and, you know, whatever. I see Jay-Z over in the corner and his management. Again, I guess, I don't know, I had more time in my hands back in these days because I thought very strategically, very fast. And I said, I wanted, for some reason, I don't even know why, I wanted Jay-Z because I had seen him in the office several times and he was always like someone who would speak and say hi or whatever. But and we always said hi to each other in the hallways, but he never knew who I was. And again, like other interns, they never had the balls to like say hi to Jay-Z in the hallway, you know, but I just used to, you know, again, I was like, I was big shit in my head. So he remembered my face from saying hi in the hallway, but I know he probably is like, who is this person? I see her all the time in the office, but I have no idea who she is. And now she's like in the skybox with like me and whatever. So I know at this point he's like, who the hell is this girl? And so in that moment, I was trying to position myself for Jay-Z. I'm like, I just want him to know or like regard me as somebody important. So I was very strategic about my next moves. So I said, I'm gonna go up. I'm gonna speak to Julie, Kevin, and Leor, and they're gonna greet me like they know me. And I'm gonna speak to everybody. And also, I had made friends with his manager. His name is John Manili, with Jay-Z's manager, and because he had an office upstairs. So him and I were on speaking, on like friendly terms as well. And so I knew that everybody in that skybox I knew, and I knew me by first name. So I said, I'm gonna make sure I say hi to all these people. They say hi to me very familiarly, like very familiar. And he's gonna really wonder like who this girl is. And maybe he'll want to know who, he'll try to get to know who I am. So I wanted like the top artists to like, respect me as like a real, executive at this company. And so I walk in, and exactly according to plan, I walk in, I say, hey, Leor, hey, Julie, and they're like, hey, Nicole, hey, and I do the same thing with his manager, and I'm like, hey, John, so he's like, hey, whatever. And so I go sit down, and sure enough, Jay, he must have been like, who is this person that everybody knows that I don't even know, And so he came over to me and he said something along the lines of, so how rude is it that you just walk into a room and you don't speak to everybody? And I was like, oh my God. And I knew at that moment that what he was saying is like, if all these important people know you, I should know you too. And that was just his way of like starting that conversation. And so it was just like a slam dunk. And so we got into a back and forth. And that just from that point on, anytime I would see him in the office, like the way he said hello was definitely with more like, okay, she's important, Those two things were just they just symbolize how I moved around in the business from that point on. Because those things, when I saw the tangible results of, hey, if you carry yourself like you're supposed to be there, if you carry yourself in a way with some conviction and like some importance, and you know what you're talking about, and you're not acting shy, that's how you'll get treated. I ended up doing that girl's job for that 4 months, and I made sure that I just went above and beyond. By the time it was time for me to leave and her to come back, I had so many people putting in words for me, and all executives, not even assistants. I went to just executives and were like, listen, she's coming back. Is there any way you can put in a good word for me? To have so many executives be able to not just speak about me like, oh, I know her, or yeah, I see her face, but they were able to be descriptive about my work and my contributions to the department. And all of them had, personal stories about, an experience with me or some way I helped them. A piece of advice is to do everything with intention and do everything, when you're on sets, it's all about what is the end goal? What do I want? How do I want people to see me? What do I want? And I said, literally at some point when I first started, I said, I want when people to say my name, I want them to say, oh, Nicole, yeah, she's dope. And I just had that in the back of my head always. And I always, operated in a way that I was going to leave somebody with, oh, wow, she's dope. Everything I did was with that in mind. A job came up at J Records. This was when Clive Davis started a new label, J Records. This was when like Alicia Keys, her first single, Fallen, came out. A publicity job came up, a PR assistant job, and I was recommended by someone in the building. And what got me that job, hands down, was the recommendation that I got from who was the head of the marketing at the time. She's now like the president of Atlantic Records, I believe, Julie Greenwald. Her recommendation was she just spoke very highly of me. And again, it wasn't fluff. It wasn't, oh, she's a good girl. It was very descriptive, character traits and things that I've done. And when the woman hired me, that's what she noted. She said that was like one of the most descriptive, detailed recommendations that I had, gotten. And so when I kept getting that kind of feedback, and when opportunities kept happening because of, just the way that I was kind of operating, I just did more of that the entire time I was in the business, and my career continued to unfold. So anyway, that role at that job, now I'm at J Records working with, like I said, Alicia Keys at the time, Maroon 5, Busta Rhymes, even Rod Stewart and Liza Minnelli. My bosses at the time used to let me go. They used to just let me run photo shoots. I was an assistant, but like, because I used to give everything my all, I was always trusted very early with big things. I was manning video shoots. I was flying on location to Atlanta to like accompany Alicia Keys with the Essence Festival and like her performance and her press, interviews. And I'd be just by myself. Like nobody from the company would fly down. It would just be me. And I did a lot of that stuff. And one memorable moment from a career defining and even a life defining moment for me was the moment when we had Liza Minnelli came, and we signed her to release her first live album in like years. She had a listening event for press, and this is like, it's Liza Minnelli, so it's like the top editors. This is New York Times, this is LA Times, just all the important people in the business are there for her listening session. And then we did it in a like kind of a like an auditorium type setting with her on the stage and all the press people in the seats. And she played her music, and she talked through each song. It was just like mind blowing that this was my life at the time, that I'm like here with Liza Minnelli, and like, it was incredible. After the event, all the PR team, which is my department, we go backstage, and it was photo op time. And so again, in this business back in the day, like assistants we were just trusted with so much. And so my boss at the time, I had never done photo ops before. So I just had to go with my instinct. And she, my boss was like, oh, you're going to do photo ops, with Liza backstage. And I'm like, what? Because I had no idea what I was doing. And my instincts just kicked in, and something just said, be creative. And if you were, a magazine or, a publication, like what pictures would you want to see? Like, and that just like snapped into my head. And so I was just backstage, like, pulling all the most important people together for these pictures. And again, I don't even know how I figured how to do this, but I'm just like, okay, Clive. And then here it is. It's like me, little old me, moving around Clive Davis, telling him where to stand, telling Liza Minnelli where to stand, all these top editors. I'm like, you come here. Okay, this will make a good picture. Okay, the New York Times, Clive and Liza. Okay, next, and I'm just like moving people around and shuffling people around, all these important major people. And it was just like a slam dunk. Like I'm putting together like images that are like literally are published, later in like the top publications. And I just remember like leaving there, and it's like it was yesterday. I remember leaving that event being like, holy crap, like what just happened? And I remember walking and looking up at the sky, like 7th Avenue, and being like, and just remembering like where I just come from, like a few months before, like from, Michigan, not doing anything, whatever, to like, and it was just a magic. And I knew, I said, at this moment, I looked up in the sky and I said, I will remember this moment for the rest of my life. And I knew that was just a life changing moment for me. And so many things like that just kept happening in my career at that place.
What would you say to somebody that's like, but I'm so afraid that I'm gonna mess up?
I was never thinking about my fears or not being confident or the fact that I'm from this little small town. What do I know? I just always thought about my end goal, and it was always, I just wanted everybody to think I was dope. That's it. And that thought, it just, it led everything. You know, I just remember being very fearless back in those days. I was very fearless, and I definitely, I'm sure I got frustrated, but I just, again, I just remember that end goal all the time. And so, as much as I probably got frustrated, I just kept going because I knew I just didn't have a choice. I think I just understood the stakes back then, and I understood the world that I was moving in, and I knew that there was just an unspoken thing back then that was like, and I don't know if the industries are the same, but there was just no time. There was no time or tolerance for like to be like, you know, a deer in headlights. It was just like you have to move on, and you have to just learn from what your mistakes. And um, I think I think that's it. I think always realizing and understanding the stakes and understanding the business that I was in, and like I said, understanding the competitive nature of it, and understanding there was like, I always knew like there are a million people who would line up to do what I'm doing right now. Um, and so I just always operated with that in mind.